Good afternoon, everyone. I'm pleased to welcome you to our fifth and final E4 Brown Bag of the 2024-25 academic year. I'm Paul Gorin. I'm the director of the E4 Center here at Northwestern School of Education and Social Policy, and it's great to have you here. Today, we're continuing a series of discussions involving colleagues from the E4 Center, the School of Education and Social Policy here at Northwestern, curriculum associates, and our district partners. This initiative originated from E4's first annual convening in May of 2023, where we formed a learning community with members from Chicago Public Schools, Oakland Public Schools, and several other school districts around the country. The key takeaway from this session was a unanimous desire to do more in-person events, and as importantly, to create and sustain our learning community over time. One way we are fostering our ongoing learning community is through a series of virtual brown bag discussions on a range of topics. This is our last brown bag of the academic year. Please stay tuned for our future offerings in the fall of 2025. We also wanted to let you know that our previous brown bags are available on our website, e4.northwestern.edu. Today's presentation will also be available in the near future. We'll let you know once it's on our website. For our fifth and final session of the 24 and 25 school year, I'm pleased and excited to welcome our colleagues and friends from the Chicago Public Schools math team. Dr. Corey Morrison is the math director in the Department of STEM at the Chicago Public School, and he is dedicated to fostering positive math identities among students and teachers. Dr. Morrison emphasizes problem solving, promoting the belief that all students can succeed in math when lessons are centered on joy and culturally rich tasks. The CPS Math Office is shaping a generation of learners who embrace math challenges with confidence and resilience by engaging teachers, administrators, and families in transformative learning experiences. Dr. Morrison holds a bachelor's degree in math theory, a master's degree in math education, and he recently completed his doctoral studies in urban education leadership. Alana Mertens is the kindergarten through fifth grade math manager in the Department of STEM in Chicago Public Schools. She's an experienced math and science educator with a demonstrated history of providing powerful professional growth opportunities to teachers and leaders in Chicago and across the country. She is an expert in instructional coaching and curriculum development and design with a passion for providing equitable access to content for all learners. She holds a Master's of Education degree from DePaul University, a bachelor's degree from the University of Illinois Chicago, and a National Board certification in early adolescence mathematics. Alexis Stokes is the kindergarten through fifth grade math content specialist in the Department of STEM in Chicago Public Schools. Prior to moving into this position in 2022, she was a classroom teacher and coach in CPS for 19 years with experience in second through sixth grades. Her passion in supporting the development of equitable teaching practices and learning conditions in mathematics, her passion is in supporting the development of equitable teaching practices and learning conditions in math classrooms in our district. She holds an MAT degree from National Louis University, a master's degree from the University of Michigan in U.S. history, and a bachelor's degree from Lawrence University. And so with that, I'll hand it off to the CPS math team.
Thank you so much for the wonderful introductions. The team is going to share their screen and get things loaded up. But I just wanted to start with, it's always a pleasure to be on a call with fellow districts and university partners to talk about some of the work we've done in E4. Has just been a wonderful space to brainstorm, workshop, test, pilot, get critical feedback, and have great relationships with other educators. So thank you so much for having us. And we're excited to begin. I said, I'm Dr. Corey Morrison and my lovely team here, which they do a ton of amazing work. And we have great dynamics of pushing new ideas while also staying grounded in what we believe in. And so I just really admire how my team works and thinks outside the box and pushes some of those edges of envelopes. But I'll go ahead and let them introduce themselves real quick, and then we'll jump into it.
Hi all, Alana Martins. As Paul said, K-5 math manager, been doing math for a long time and love it. It's my joy and my passion to engage everyone in some fun math.
Yeah, hi, and I'm Alexis again. I think of myself mostly as a third grade teacher because that was what I was for so many years, but I'm very excited to be working in this department and supporting the work across our district.
Fantastic. So we can go next. Just to give everyone fair warning, we never use Zoom. I cannot figure out how to get my background to look like the rest of the teams, and also don't know how to drive the deck. So I'll be saying next a lot. But our objective today is to provide an overview how CPS is rolling out the Skyline Maths, our homegrown curriculum. It's a high quality based curriculum, or high quality problem based math curriculum, and we're supporting teachers making the shift not only in adopting a new curriculum, but also the shift to problem based instruction. So it's a twofold change management challenge for us. So why would a district want to create its own curriculum? That's one question we want to address. What is a high quality math curriculum in Chicago? What is that cultural relevance piece? And then how does a district ensure educators can be successful with the new curriculum? Those are the three guiding questions we wanted to elevate for you all today. So what we knew back in 2018 or back in 2017, when this idea really came out of the previous administration, was that we didn't necessarily have coherence across the district around what is a high quality curriculum. We are a district of choice, and so we had a lot of folks using all sorts of things, and so the team at the time wanted to provide a resource that was available for everyone. But they dug into the national research, like, well, what needs to be a part of that research? What structures need to be in place? And one of them was that the opportunity myth shared it has to be grade level. I think that was a giant misconception across the district, is that we needed to meet students where they are all the time, which means often going down in grade level and going to a lower level of rigor in the name of serving students. And what the opportunity myth really highlighted was that when you give students grade level, students rise to that occasion, they rise to that challenge. And we don't need to over scaffold, and we don't need to bring things down to students. We need to set a standard, create supports, and allow students to rise up. So that report was really informative and powerful and challenging a lot of the misconceptions of what does it mean to support students. And we learned it's not by bringing down the curriculum. We also learned that if you use high quality instructional materials, outcomes grow, not the other way around. A lot of people feel like in math, there's going to be this frustration point. There's going to be a lot of like barriers in the road. If we're using these rich, high level math, they say, well, not all my kids can do that. That's something we heard a lot of. So there's only for a certain group of kids can do that. And between the elements report and the opportunity myth, it really challenged who should have access to rich, high quality math. And it really, the answer is everyone. Everyone should have access. And then the third piece of understanding was like, okay, if we're going to make that shift, what do we know about the type of professional learning teachers are going to need? And what we learned from this elements report was curriculum-based professional learning is more powerful than two of the best things we know about teaching. If you have a high-performing teacher, you're going to do well. If you reduce class size, that's an intervention we know that has proven to do well. Well, we learned that curriculum-based professional learning increased test scores about the same effect of those other two high leverage strategies. So that's where we started. If you go to the next slide. So the context, as I mentioned, we are decentralized. Schools get to choose what they want. We did a survey after learning about this ecosystem, and we found 50% of teachers reported not having a curriculum. 50% of teachers not a high quality, just not having one. And so they were left in a world where they had to fend for themselves and find materials online, like Teachers Pay Teachers, and places that there's no way to build coherence if you're just out there searching for one-off lessons or activities. 85% also indicated they thought the district should own that responsibility to provide this curriculum. Another key factor and why we wanted to make Skyline a free resource and consistent across all schools, we have a high mobility rate in Chicago public schools. So one of our concerns was, instead of just providing a really robust list of programs that schools could opt into, it's like, well, if a student moves from one school to another school because of, home insecurity, or if they move to a different part of town, are they going to be exposed to the same quality experience anywhere in the district? And we wanted to ensure that. And so it's one of the reasons we wanted to build a free resource for all CPS schools. And then one other piece that is important here is that state law required heightened security with the SOPA requirements around student privacy and security. So building our own in-house system allows us to protect that data and build up inside walls, especially now that AI and other things are coming down the pipe. Having our own curriculum allows us to be a bit more flexible because all of our data stays inside our system. All right, so what is the definition of high quality math resource? We leaned heavily on the EdReports rubric that laid out what a high quality curriculum is, but it has to be not just the material, it has to be assessments, it has to be resources, it has to be other things involved. So go ahead, next slide. To help us ensure that we don't do this just one time, and this is going to be something that we are going to support ongoing, we added it to our new accountability system. And I think this is really important to note, was that it wasn't an investment of a one-time deal to build a high quality curriculum and deliver it. We put it in as a responsibility of the district that we should have access to a universal, high quality, rigorous, culturally responsive curriculum for all schools. It's just a part of our CIDT, or our initiative of how we measure accountability. School level information on the extent to which all students across all grade levels have access is something that we publicly report now. So every school reports out what curriculum they use, if it's high quality or not. And so that's very clear and transparent to families, communities, what's going on inside the school. And so we feel the responsibility to make sure we provide a free option for schools. Right, so back to what is a part of this high quality. We know it's standards aligned. It has to be grade level. We know it's horizontally aligned as far as instructional materials and assessments. So the just-in-time support, the intervention materials, the additional resources, the assessments, they're all aligned to each other. So you're not pulling one-offs and things that don't speak to each other. So your data from one thing can inform how you instruct on another thing. Next slide. It's vertically aligned across grade bands. What we saw, a lot of schools had a different curriculum for K1 or 3.5 or 6.8. So having a curriculum that we offer that is vertically aligned across all grade bands, K11, is imperative so that students have a similar experience every day in the structure of the lesson, launch, explore, discuss, knowing that we're going to be talking about culturally relevant materials, thinking about how it relates to their social context. But what the content is, every grade level is gonna change. But that experience is vertically aligned. Accessible for all learners. We build so many supports, UDL, WIDA tables, different things into the curriculum so that all learners have access to the materials. Supportive of student social emotional learning is another key feature. Those are built right into the teacher-facing resources on how they can leverage different examples and different activities. And then culturally responsive. This is one of the ones that is the hardest for any out-of-the-box curriculum that we found, because what does it mean to be culturally relevant in Chicago? It's not only a Chicago context, but then it drills down into a neighborhood context. And what we're learning now is that culturally responsive is an infinite place to dig into, because every single student is having a different cultural reaction and response to the material. So it's one of the areas of, extreme opportunity, especially with AI and other kind of tools that can help dig into this. But we have some examples of how we have built cultural relevance and responsiveness into the curriculum. Here's one of them. Great. I'm glad this slide is right after that. I didn't realize I was going to roll right into it. So this is a 5th grade lesson that all of our lessons are this launch, explore, discuss. And part of the launch was to talk about soul food. Part of that conversation is, why is soul food so prominent in Chicago when we think of it as a Southern dish? Connecting those dots to the Great Migration. And a lot of students in Chicago have family off of the train lines of the Great Migration. They have relatives. Many of the teachers we talked to, they're like, when we brought this up, they're like, oh my goodness, my mom used to send me back to Mississippi for the summer to be with my cousins and my aunties. So the cultural connection of the Great Migration and soul food in Chicago is something we have not necessarily thought about, but it made this lesson come to life for folks. And we only spent, 5 to 7 minutes talking about this connection and enjoy. Everyone loves to talk about food in general, but then bringing it back to those familial ties. And then this lesson dug into fractions of a recipe that grandma would make. And so we had a really rich math involved, but we also had this wonderful activation of cultural relevance that made this lesson stick for various folks, even teachers. Teachers really love talking about this lesson and how it made them think about fractions differently. So it's just one example. And so the last thing I'll leave before Alexis and Alana get more into the detail of the math behind everything is this ecosystem that is Skyline. It's not just the content and the curriculum and the pages, activities for students. It is the Safari montage, which houses our instructional materials and the content packages. But it's also the assessment from School City. How do those two things talk to each other? It's also other ed technology that is going to be SOPA compliant and make sure that it's collecting student data in an appropriate way. But now those two things talk to each other. So you have interventions that can be logged and tied to standards from the content, from the assessments. Google Classroom is our student learn platform. So that's how we can interface with everything. That's very smooth. And then grades through our Aspen system. So all of these things work with each other so that the curriculum is not just a standalone, but it can, as we continue to improve it, it can be leveraged very powerfully for students to give us that instant feedback of, we know where they assessed, we know what ed tech platforms we might need access to, we know how they're working in Google Classroom, what activities they're engaged in, and we know exactly what lessons to pick out of the curriculum to really provide just-in-time supports. So I just wanted to highlight that complex ecosystem is more than just adopting a curriculum. So the daily student experience is what our CETO has called us to all be attentive to. And math has always been attentive to this. We love a rigorous, joyful, and equitable experience, but this is the call for every single curriculum to make sure that it is rigorous, joyful, and equitable. I do want to highlight the word joyful does not just mean fun. We think a lot about this in the math side of things, and that joyful also means full of pride. Joyful means feeling accomplished. Joyful means, being mentally stretched, and that the joy that comes with a challenge is very much still joyful. And so the curriculum can be rigorous and challenging and push thinking and create debate and do all of those things and still be joyful for the participants. So I just want to elevate that it's not just fun, it's joyful in this really meaningful way. This is where I check in with the team. I've gone over a minute by 2 minutes. Keep digging in. Okay, I'll keep going. So as we're here, these are always the awkward moments of a webinar series. If we were in person or interacting, I would ask you to read this out loud. And I'm asking you to read it now at your home or your computer silently, and really think about a word or phrase that resonates with you out of this math vision. I'll give you a second. It's a lot of words on the screen. I'll give you 1 second to kind of read that over and pull out a word or phrase that resonates with you. I don't think the chat feature is available. It is. Oh, you can drop that word or phrase into the chat. That would be best. That way I know that we're here. I'm seeing mathematics, grapple, critical thinking, although not directly said. Okay, absolutely. Explore, grapple with. I love the word grapple, and I'll say my 2 cents here. Grapple is such a messy word if you really think about it. If you close your eyes and visualize children grappling, it is, the shirts are torn, they're messy. I imagine like two, first graders rolling around, because kids love to wrestle. They love to grapple with each other. And so this idea that grappling can be fun, but it's going to be a little messy, and, you might get a couple scrapes along the way, but it's a really enjoyable experience. So I love the word grapple to not have a problem. We'll go to the next slide. The only problem with that vision is it's the right vision. NCTM has looked at our vision, and other folks have seen our vision. They're like, yeah, that's the right vision. But how do you get to that vision? And so we went to school on that vision 3 years ago and really dug deep into what would it take to get to that vision realistically and make it tangible for folks. And we landed on these 4 priorities. If these are done every day or regularly in a school setting, then we have a real shot of reaching that vision. And one, it's use a high quality curriculum. Use a curriculum that's vertically horizontally aligned, has rich tasks, and it's a grade level. We got to do that. The second one is we got to focus on sense making, moving away from just answer getting and procedures, but really leaning into this idea of a structure like LED that gives you space and time to make sense of the problem, explore your own ideas, come up with your own solutions, challenge them with each other. Thirdly, we have to be attentive to identity. We have to make sure that all students feel like they belong and they see themselves as not just belonging in the space because the teacher's nice, but they see themselves as doers of mathematics and problem solvers. So that intersectionality of those identities is really crucial for the success in our district. And then the fourth one is we have to attend to adult math identity. We have to have professional learning. We have to have spaces where teachers work with each other to lean on and grow in their own math identity. We know that math trauma is real. A lot of people have negative math experiences. So we have to overcome those before we can impact students. So here's the big shift. And Alexis is going to talk more deeply about this shift. But just throwing it up there, this is why it's twofold. It's not just adopting a new curriculum. It's also adopting a new way of teaching mathematics. So trying to do both at the same time is what we've been experiencing the last 3 years. And it's been really rewarding work as we've changed hearts and minds because, this gradual release method is what folks were taught to do. They thought that's the way students best learn mathematics. And we know now that it is not the best way that students learn mathematics. They need to grapple with those problems. They need to be put in a role of sense maker. They need to work collaboratively, apply knowledge and solve problems. And they do all these things with a teacher as a facilitator instead of a teacher as a lecturer. So I'll pass it over to Alexis to dig into how our team has kind of positioned ourselves into supporting teachers and making that shift happen.
Yeah, thanks, Corey. So as a district, we have an implementation framework that really takes into account this dual lift that Corey's been talking about, right? Shifting to a new curriculum, yes, but also shifting to a curriculum that thinks about teaching math in a different kind of way. So there is some support offered at the school level, at our network level, and then finally at our district level to facilitate this process. And there's sort of 2 big categories into which this support falls. So we have some work around collaborative planning practices. That includes thinking about the unit as a whole, thinking about individual lessons, digging into the assessments. Then we also have support around routines to support and monitor curriculum implementation. That happens most likely at the school level, but it's really where teachers get an opportunity to collaborate and analyze and act on data, receive some instructional coaching and feedback. All that really wraps in with our math priority 4, professional learning, because we know that professional learning in the context of a curriculum is so crucial to it being taught well. I want to talk a little bit more about the unit internalization process, which is something that our office has worked quite a bit with over the past couple of years. So our district does use a general unit internalization process, which is content agnostic, but the math team and other teams add particular guidance in for using this tool when planning specifically for mathematics. And this unit internalization process really has become one of the biggest supports offered to newly adopting teachers, but it's also complemented by the other PL offerings that you see here on the left side of your screen. So there's a system of badging that gets people familiar with the ecosystem in which the Skyline curriculum lives. We do a series of Skyline, what we call Skyline 101 intros over the summer to get people thinking about the curriculum. Then we do these unit internalizations throughout the year at about the time teachers are expected to begin a new unit. And then in addition to that, our PL team offers some ongoing sprints, which are grade banded, that just help us dig into some more of those practice shifts that Corey mentioned before. So all of that's offered, especially for our first year Skyline adopting teachers, but we also invite and encourage year 2+ teachers to continue on with these processes of unit planning and collaborative planning. And they're welcome to join us at our district-wide sessions, but that can also happen within the school building or at a network level. We're going to take a look now at what a typical unit internalization session has looked like for our K-5 math team. So as we develop our year-long series, we identify common themes that are going to tie those sessions together. And so you see those here on your screen. Those themes are building capacity for implementing the instructional shifts that promote a problem-based classroom, and then equally importantly, fostering positive math identities for both teachers and students in the space. Okay, click. So each 6-hour session also has a particular focus aligned with a practice shift. So in this example for this session, the practice shift that we really wanted to dig into was the launch part of the LED lesson cycle, which Corey referred to a little bit as something that's replacing this idea of gradual release of responsibility, the I do, we do, you do model. Instead, a lesson is launched with an activity that provides access for students and welcomes all students into the math space by giving some access again to both the context and the mathematical content of the day's lesson. Okay, next click. So, and then in the second part of the day, we always make this a crucial thing that we engage teachers in a full Skyline math lesson, all parts, launch, the explore, the discuss, and we ask them really to sort of take off their teacher hats and have this experience as a learner so that they can really experience firsthand those practice shifts, how they feel. Next click. And then in the final portion of the day is when we get to the unit internalization of the unit internalization session. So in this part of the day, teachers work with teachers of the same grade level, and they also again get to sit with the content specialist. So me, if you're a 3rd grade teacher, my other colleagues, if you teach another grade, and they complete the unit internalization process in order to deeply understand what students are expected to learn through the unit. So looking at standards and objectives, how students are going to be assessed. And so we're looking at both the end of unit assessment as well as any sort of quizzes and interim assessments, and even down to the level of the daily exit tickets and checks for understanding. And then we hope that after looking at all of these things, their teachers are gaining a really solid understanding of the arc of the learning over the course of the unit. And so the collaboration that occurs during this process really, we find, increases teacher knowledge and confidence as they prepare to teach an upcoming unit. Next slide. And so the pictures that you see here are some images from a few of our unit internalization sessions. And we really hope that they illustrate the collaborative, hands-on nature of these sessions, right? Our aim is for teachers to leave our sessions not only just with a stronger understanding of the Skyline math curriculum and the math content, but also with the experiences that will positively influence their own identities as doers and teachers of math. Yeah, so I'm going to turn it over to Alana to talk a little bit more about that teacher and student experience.
Hi, everybody. We'll see how things roll, but what I'd like you to do right now is kind of sit back and relax. We're going to actually hear from some of our teachers and our students who have engaged in this learning and are implementing the Skyline math curriculum. So with any luck, I'm going to push play and there's going to be a video that plays.
My name is Tamara Leachman. I have been working at Avalon Park Elementary School for the last 3 years. I am a 3rd through 5th grade math teacher. This is my 8th school year teaching, and this is my 2nd year teaching Skyline math. One benefit, I would say, teaching Skyline, a lot of the content is specific to students' personal lives. I know there were problems before that we solved about the Shed Aquarium or the Field Museum, and students were instantly able to connect. So it made it meaningful, the learning that day meaningful for students. I love that the benefit is that tasks are open-ended, where students are able to and really now know that with math, yes, there may be one answer, but there's multiple ways or paths to get to it. So I think that's a huge benefit as well. And another benefit, it just allows for the collaboration or like a collaborative environment. I am most excited about the engagement that I see from students with Skyline, because it really brings out the student thinking and incorporating different perspectives to this to questioning. And so that's when I get really excited, when I'm having those discussions where hands are up and I can't really get to everybody because everyone has something to say. So I love that. I would say, to sum that up, I am most excited about the engagement that I see from students with Skyline.
My name is Sheena Walker Carruthers. I teach math at Morgan Park High School. I've been teaching for about 17 years. I started teaching math 3 years ago, so it's fairly new for me. I started out teaching middle school, and then I transitioned to high school. So this is on my second year teaching Skyline at high school level. The biggest benefit of using the Skyline curriculum is it allows me to be the facilitator. It allows the students to have the discourse amongst each other, and it's built into the curriculum as opposed to me finding a way to get it in there. So what I do to prep for my Skyline lessons, I take a look at the entire unit, but I like to take an overview and see what I can chunk because of time constraints. And then I go into planning, see what the misconceptions are, see what prior knowledge they need to have. So I have to have an understanding of what they need to know, what their misconceptions are, so that as they're having that discussion, I can ask probing questions and not be prepared to simply give them the answers. I know for me, it is a new curriculum. However, they have been great about taking on these challenging tasks, asking questions and not giving up. And I think it was surprising for me when I first started doing Skyline to see how well they work with the curriculum. So many times I feel like we don't give our students an opportunity to showcase what they know because they don't get a particular score on a pre-assessment, but this really gave me an idea. They have the ability to think through math.
My name is Paul Zanotti. I teach math at Calvin Park High School. So I've been a math teacher for 7 years now. I've been teaching Skyline for 3. I think Skyline is really well designed for exploratory type lessons. It really does kind of sequence it so you can have students create their own knowledge in there. It's not just routine and rote kind of like memorization. It's really developing their own knowledge and kind of internalizing that push for knowledge.
Instead of worksheets, we're encouraged to, communicate and talk with the teacher instead of just getting a packet.
Part that the students like the most in the Skyline curriculum is definitely the develop understanding tasks. The ones where they get to kind of work together, kind of mess around with patterns, just like the lessons today. They really seem to enjoy stuff like that.
I think last year I had 2 math classes. I had morning algebra and I had regular algebra. I feel like a lot of it was very silent and there was no collaboration, if at all. When the exam actually came up, I didn't know how to, because I never worked with other people to further my understanding. I'd only ever memorized the formulas for it. So I feel like when it left me a little stuck. I like this class a lot better.
I think the goal of today's lesson was just to learn more about patterns, because that's not something we'll usually do like on an everyday basis.
In the warm-up, the patterns like branched out to the right, just like how we had to do on our worksheet for today, or not worksheet, like the paper, but yeah.
I like the way that we worked as a group, because sometimes like teachers won't do that, and I liked how we worked as a group and we were able to talk about it, because if I was left alone, I would probably be like confused and then like shy to ask people, but as a group it feels like welcoming, like you can talk to each other about it.
The thing that I'm most proud of since I've started to use Skyline Math is the collaboration between my students. I really think that's been a strength and a point of pride in this classroom recently.
Earlier on my table, I was like basically tell them how to do it, and then my friend Angelina, she was also like telling me like, yo, you got that wrong. And then I was like, I didn't even realize. So like I was like, oh, collaboration can like really like you can use their strengths and put it into you use it with your strengths, and their strengths can fulfill like they can like fill your weaknesses, you know, and that can really help.
So I'd like you to just take a minute and get off of it. If I can get to the next slide. There we go. What Alexis and Corey spoke about is we're asking teachers to make a big shift. And I want you to kind of consider right now, what did you hear from those teachers about making that shift away from maybe a traditional math model of gradual release to this more of a problem-based model where the students are at the center of the learning? So I'd love for you to drop a little something into the chat. Just what did you hear from teachers about making that shift and thinking about how they are teaching Skyline Math? So I welcome you to even come off a mute and say something, or just pop some ideas in the chat box about what the teachers were saying. What stood out to you? Yeah. Krista, did you want to unmute and tell us what you were thinking when you saw that?
Sure. Hi. Well, I think the student collaboration piece really stuck out to me. And it makes sense that engagement increases when you actually give kids opportunities to talk to each other and try to solve interesting, meaningful problems with one another. I really appreciated the student at the very end who was like, I didn't even realize I made a mistake until, my collaborator, friend, or whatever, like pointed it out. And I think teachers, and myself included when I was teaching, it's easy to get into this like rut of thinking that like kids are cheating off each other, when they're doing that kind of collaboration and helping each other out. But to hear that student really identify that as a learning opportunity for him, I felt like it was really powerful, and it's probably a powerful message for teachers.
Thank you for coming off a mute and sharing, Krista. I appreciate you. Peter, you mentioned something about how Paul Giannotti was talking about the instructional materials. Did you want to elaborate on that?
Yeah, to say, just echoing the previous point, I'm always interested when you can see something empirical coming out of a collaborative learning experience. And that's what we heard in the report from that high school student. He was saying, like, I had a specific thing that I got wrong and it was corrected. I like hearing stories like that because it shifts collaboration from sort of a vague, aspirational, touchy-feely thing to something you can actually see an incremental change in somebody's knowledge.
It's pretty exciting to see, right? And we were only able to show you about 6 minutes of some different teachers thinking about that. But if we could have that going on in all the classrooms, we'd be so excited, right? Also, I see that, and let me see if I've got your name right. Arikpo Dada mentioned something about the ability for the different types of learners to be entered into the thinking. Did you want to share any more about that?
Yeah, I just really, I remember being a teacher and we would just started standard-based learning, and the idea of it's not only getting up the mountain, it's how you get up the mountain. And it's okay if some kids need a detour, and it's okay if some kids run and some kids want to walk backwards, right? But they got up the mountain. So I think that when I see that, it always excites me that when students are able to have different ways of getting the information, different ways of showing their knowledge, and still have that confidence of getting the correct answer. So I think that.
Yeah, that's amazing, right? And it's interesting because I had this next slide, which really wanted to harken back to how those students are feeling. And I think many of you are getting to that right now. So we really want that daily student experience to be rigorous and joyful and equitable, and rigorous and in ways that excite kids. Like, we get to do hard works because we're able to do hard work. We're able to do the grade level content and really engage in it. So I did have another question, just like, how do you think those kids are feeling? And if you want to pop something into the chat, I know we already started talking about that, but how are those kids, the kids that you saw in this little short clip, feeling that shift towards more joyful and rigorous? If you'd like to pop something in the chat or even come off of mute. And I appreciate everyone who was able to share with us so far. I guess you all probably saw my big grin as I'm watching the kids. It's my favorite thing in the world to get out there and see these kids really engaging and loving math and doing math and feeling like they belong. So that has been a huge message that we've been sending to teachers, and really working towards hearing how students are beginning to see themselves as mathematicians, beginning to see themselves as the doers and the thinkers. I love it. Increased confidence in themselves and in one another. Thank you, Krista. And strong self-efficacy is what you're seeing from Allison. Did you want to chime in on that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think like hearing these kids coupled with this idea of teachers kind of releasing some of that power and letting them own a little bit more of that cognitive lift. Like, you can see that they are not only ready for that, but excited by that. And that these students and our students who have this opportunity to say, like, okay, it's time that you take a really active role and become these independent learners. You can see these kids really thriving and feeling, that pride, like I think Corey was talking about, right? That goes along with identity work of, oh, I did it, and I did it collectively, but teacher didn't tell me to do it. I figured it out.
So true. Thanks for sharing. Anyone else want to pop off of mute and share what you thought about the students' engagement in this new curriculum and new way of thinking about mathematics? It's not so new, but we see it as new. Well, I'm going to turn it back over to Corey to just kind of answer any questions you might have and to talk about any of the lesson learned that we have seen so far.
Thanks, Alana. And I think one of the big lessons learned, I'll jump right into that, is that creating a video library, has been a really powerful tool for lots of reasons. And so Alana has come to us. We are blessed to have her on our team because she has years of experience. We were sitting in a conference one time, and she's sitting next to me, and a video goes up on the screen. And I believe it, I won't say the name of who was presenting, but the presenter showed this video, and Alana's like, I did that video. And he's, talking about the work and all this stuff. And then at the very end, he's like, yeah, this video came from Chicago with our partnership with DePaul. And she's like, see, I told you I did that video. So like she has done so much video work and knows what to look for, knows what we're trying to capture and how to leverage the videos across many stakeholders. And so I think that is a huge piece. If you guys are thinking about ways to accelerate this learning across the district, the video library has been the best resource and tool. We have built now, I think we're up to 20 videos in our video library. We can share them by topic. We share them to teachers and administrators. Right now, we're training a group of administrators on how to give feedback by watching the videos, because we never want to say that the videos are exemplars. We just want to say the videos are examples of where people are right now. And so you saw a video of a teacher in their first year adopting, you've seen a video in their second year. So you can use the videos if you assume that the videos are not perfect examples of how teachers should do this, you can use it for feedback, you can use it for improvement and reflection, because I think the continuous improvement part is really important. The other thing is that addressing that math trauma, I don't know who mentioned it, this idea of cheating is like one of the primary examples of the culture of answer getting. If your culture is around answer getting, then if students are collaborating to get an answer, that means somebody's not carrying their weight, somebody is cheating, and it creates this narrative that you can't collaborate in a space like that. And so when we talk about moving towards sense making, I think that was a very tangible, concrete example of you have to get the misconception of cheating out the way if you're going to move towards sense making, right? So that's really important. And I think a lot of that comes from the way students learn or way teachers learn math. So we talk about that all the time with our teachers, is trying to unlearn the math traumas that they experienced. And we do a lot of activities around story mapping or around thinking around their math autobiography. So we do intentional activities for folks to reflect on those math traumas that they've had. Asset-based thinking is needed for success in just-in-time support. I think that is one of the things we're seeing in collaboration. Collaboration naturally brings up what students are thinking. And so if we can have teachers thinking around asset-based, what do I hear? Where are they getting close to the standard? We start to see them moving around the room, not in a way to correct folks or try to fix answers, but we start seeing teachers move in a way they're like, oh, such and such has got it. Such and such is almost there. Such and such, they're gonna get there through that conversation. And it becomes a lot of this belief, and it self-fulfills the room around students can do this work. I know they can do this work. I just have to nudge them, versus everybody stop. I'm seeing the same misconception. We're all gonna go work on this piece. And so I think that's something we're finding. And the last one is early findings are showing coherence is key. If the principal knows what they're looking for, if the teachers know what they're trying to do ahead of time, they're trying to create this environment and the conditions where students can lean on each other and grapple with a hard problem. If everybody knows that's what we're trying to do today, then we're seeing a lot of growth. If the administration or the co-teacher or the special ed teacher or the gen ed, if somebody doesn't believe that that's what we're trying to do today, then we're seeing challenges. So coherence is key across the school site around this shift. Where we want to get better. We want to figure out, how do you progress monitor identity development? I was typing in the chat with Allison's comment, strong self-efficacy. I'll press enter because I was typing it. I want to make a shirt that says math identity loading or something. I don't know. We got to think of something around like math identity is not a fixed place. It's something that's constantly being developed, and strong self-efficacy is a piece of that. Having those experiences. But the question is, we don't know how many experiences a student needs before they believe in themselves. I recently wore a I am a math person shirt on an airplane, and I got a lot of comments about it. And a lot of people were telling me they weren't math people, but they want, I kid you not, a person who's works in like finance, uses a spreadsheet the whole time on the plane. She's using a spreadsheet, computing numbers. She's like, I'm not a math person. So we have to continue to monitor and give people positive feedback around their identity in mathematics, so they see themselves that way. The other one is, how do we deepen our ability of our own team to get better at this work? Like Alexa said and Alana said, we were classroom teachers who come into this role as specialists. We're trying to get better at supporting teachers better. And I think that is an ongoing process. We are not experts. I mean, we're gaining expertise, but we were not experts in how do you teach adults how to facilitate these kind of classrooms when we started. And we've really grown into that space. We've done a lot of shared learning, and we just continue to think about how do we develop that ability to impact all teachers at different spaces. Observation calibrations, they're needed. We're continuing to do those. And then the last one that I put in here is, if we want to scale to across the district and we want to scale across the entire school, because we don't want to just be in the second grade or third grade or K2, how do we leverage the network staff? The way our district is set up, we have 17 networks. We have 300,000 students, 535 schools. Our small team of 15 can't go into every space. And so how do we leverage other folks around this math work and keep it going? So those are really the things that are bouncing around in our head every day as we continue on this journey. I think I hit all the talking points. I'm not sure. I just got excited. The video got me excited. And then, Alana, Alexis talking about the work gets me excited. So sometimes I get distracted by it. I believe now we can open the floor for questions or ideas that you guys are coming up for you.
Can I ask that question that's on the screen now? How do we progress monitor identity development? How do you think about that?
Well, I put Cultivate there. We have a U Chicago partner. We give a survey every year that is not identifiable by teacher, but it gives schools kind of aggregate feedback on the conditions. U Chicago's identified there's 9 conditions that really matter. Affirming identities is one of those conditions. But we know math identity is just slightly different than just your identity. Like it's an intersectionality of identities that creates your math identity. So thinking about how we progress monitor that in relation to, there's, the teacher brings in all kinds of cultures, and yes, the teacher validates my personal identity. But how does that intersect with the mathematics and the doer of hard things?
Corey, Alana, Alexis, this is Paul. I'm wondering about assessment and some of the challenges you have, and you have somewhere embedded in here the continuous improvement process. So continuous improvement, you need to have some data, and you use assessment data. How's that going, and what are some of the challenges you're facing with your good friends who are educators in the schools?
Alexis or Alana, you guys can jump in on that one if you want to. I'm still processing.
Paul, are you asking how are the results of the student assessments informing the kind of continuous improvement that we're making in this curriculum?
And how are educators making sense of the assessment data?
Mm-hmm. Good question.
It is a good question. I think I understand it a little better now that you repeated it. How we're learning cycles is the vehicle in which we do that. And so we've been working with schools and teachers around developing their ability to do a learning cycle. Because I think when you're talking about practice shifts, you're not necessarily going to get data from outcome. You're not going to get test score data to use. You're not necessarily going to use classroom assessment data, but you are going to be thinking about what evidence or what data would you collect to measure increase in student discourse? Like if you as a teacher want to increase student discourse, what would you want to collect from your students? How would you know you got better at increasing student discourse? So the learning cycle is a little bit more fine-tuned for that type of data. So teachers and their teacher teams can lean into a practice shift that they're working on, define that data that they would want to collect around that practice shift, and then review that and grow and do that, they try something out, they see how it's going based on that data. I think from our big level assessment data, teachers are using it in various ways to make instructional decisions. I think it's one thing we're noticing is using it to focus in on a target group is showing great promise. So we used data to see we needed to support 3rd through 5th grade diverse learners in this type of math instruction. And then we spent a full year getting smart about that and trying different iterations. And we're seeing not only the practice shift, but now we're also starting to see the outcome of the data. So I think data pointing us in the right direction, but getting fine-tuned into the practice shift and what data would make sense for that has been more powerful. I don't know if Alexis, Alana, if you would add anything to that. And Paul, I don't know if that answers your question.
No, that totally does. And it's really, really interesting. And I think we have time for one more question.
I'm curious, if I may, I'm wondering if you know how many schools in the district are using Skyline for their math curriculum. How are you kind of keeping track of who's using it and who's not? And are there ways that you have of sort of spreading the word to try to get more schools on board?
I don't know if the team has the exact number, so correct me if you do. I think it's around 160 right now. Don't quote me there, because the mandate is that they have to adopt a high quality curriculum. And so there are other high quality curriculums that are also problem based. So we do have schools that adopted IM, they've adopted Eureka Squared, they've adopted Envision, iReady. So there is some of that happening. The nice thing is that by next year, all schools will have adopted a high quality problem-based curriculum. So we have a range of adopters from 4-year early adopters to just adopted this year. And next year, we will have our last group of first-year adopters. And that's not because they're just holding out. It's they adopted in other content first. So they did, English and then social studies and then science and then math. And so this mandate came out 4 years ago. And so math has been adopted a little later, as most people are really uncomfortable and don't feel confident in that math. So yes, we do a lot of things to recruit folks over. We just had a webinar an hour ago, right before this, explaining the differences between all these things. So we're looking, to support 200 plus schools next year with their rollout across K.
Thank you.
I think with that, I want to give a big thank you to the CPS math team. What an interesting opportunity for us to learn and make sense of what you're doing in the Chicago Public Schools. So to Corey and to Alana and Alexis, thank you so much for your time and your engagement and your joy at doing this work, because I think you brought a lot of joy, substantive joy, to all of us as well. So on behalf of E4, thanks so very much, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you so much for having us.